Have you ever felt that something profound is about to happen in your life, as if the entire universe were conspiring to place you before someone who will change everything? It's no coincidence. Before a true meeting of souls, there are subtle and not so subtle signs that begin to emerge from the unconscious, revealing that an essential reunion is on its way. These signs are not mere coincidences or products of chance, but manifestations of an inner call to integration and wholeness. When we draw near to meeting someone who mirrors our forgotten parts, the inner world begins to stir. Vivid dreams, synchronicities, and intense sensations become more frequent, preparing us for this transformative impact. If you believe you are close to experiencing this kind of deep connection, write in the comments, "I am ready to recognize my soul in another person." Within Carl Jung's analytical psychology, the meeting with a soulmate transcends the conventional romantic idea. Above all, it is a profound archetypal mirroring that touches directly on the journey of individuation, the ongoing process of becoming who you truly are at your core. For Jung, this meeting awakens powerful unconscious forces, for the other person embodies aspects of our psyche that have not yet been recognized, integrated, or accepted. The true soul bond is the one that activates the shadow, that makes us look at our wounds and hidden patterns, not so we can suffer, but so we can grow. As this connection draws near, manifestations of the anima, the feminine aspect of the male psyche, and the animus, the masculine aspect of the female psyche, emerge. These archetypes project onto the other person, creating an intense and often inexplicable attraction. The meeting, in this sense, is a summons to integrate these inner opposites. The other becomes the catalyst for profound psychological transformation. In addition, synchronicities, another key concept in Jung's work, begin to appear more often. Unexpected encounters, meaningful coincidences, and symbolic messages seem to align the external reality with an internal process of preparation for this bond. These events signal that the unconscious is communicating something vital. The moment of reunion with an essential part of yourself is near. Thus, recognizing a soulmate is not a magical event in the childish sense, but an archetypal call to wholeness. The other comes to challenge us, expand us, and remind us of what we already are, but have forgotten along the way. And in that recognition, we take another step towards totality. When we are on the verge of a meeting that has the power to profoundly transform our psyche, the first reaction is often not euphoria, but discomfort. This discomfort is largely the result of the activation of the shadow. For Carl Jung, the shadow consists of all the aspects of ourselves that we reject, hide, or simply have never recognized. And, paradoxically, it is precisely before a meeting with a soulmate that this forgotten part of our psyche begins to stir, as if it knows that something within us will soon be challenged to come to light. This movement is almost inevitable, for a true meeting of souls does not occur only on the external plane. It triggers a deep mirroring that touches old wounds, unconscious behavioral patterns, and limiting beliefs we have carried since childhood, or even before. As we prepare inwardly for this kind of connection, our unconscious pushes us to confront parts that need integration. This can manifest in many ways: emotional crises without apparent cause, a sense of existential emptiness, increased self-criticism, or even self-sabotaging behaviors. None of this is a sign of failure or imbalance, but part of the psychic preparation process for something greater. Jung affirmed that no one becomes enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness within conscious. In this sense, the soulmate does not come to complete us in the superficial romantic sense, but to reveal with intensity what needs to be healed and reintegrated. Before the meeting, therefore, it is common to feel as though we are facing internal battles. We may attract people who mirror our shadow in painful ways, or relive relationship patterns we thought we had already overcome. All of this is part of the inner cleansing process that precedes the true meeting. This phase can also awaken feelings of fear, resistance, or doubt. After all, the idea of opening yourself completely to someone, to the point of allowing them to see your deepest wounds, challenges the ego and its need for control and protection. The ego fears dissolution, and the meeting with the soulmate represents exactly that. A kind of symbolic death of old ways of being, so that something more authentic can emerge. The soulmate does not just see who we are on the surface, They sense, feel, and recognize who we are in essence, including what we try to hide. During this process, the shadow can be projected onto the other person. We might see traits in them that irritate us deeply and judge them harshly, when in fact those same traits are mirrors of something we reject in ourselves. This projection is a common defense mechanism and, when understood, becomes a powerful tool for self-knowledge. The more aware we are of our shadow, the lighter these projections become, and the freer the bond we create. Therefore, if you feel that old ghosts have reappeared, that you are being forced to confront pains and patterns that seemed long forgotten, know that this can be a powerful sign that something important is approaching. The unconscious does not waste energy. It prepares the ground when it senses that an essential meeting is about to occur. The soulmate, in truth, is less about romance and more about inner revolution. They activate the shadow not to destroy us, but to show us that we are far more than we think. This is the deep invitation of the soulmate archetype, a portal inward, where the other is only the mirror. And before the most beautiful reflection can appear, we must clean the mirror, face the distortions, and embrace what we have avoided for so long. The true meeting begins when we stop running from ourselves. When we are about to live an experience that will have a profound impact on our psychic journey, the unconscious often anticipates it. It begins to send signals, alerts, and invitations through symbolic images and dreamlike narratives that, at first glance, may seem enigmatic or disconnected. For Carl Jung, dreams are direct expressions of the unconscious psyche, shaped by archetypal symbols that reveal more than we can grasp in our waking state. Thus, when a soulmate draws near, dreams become intense, striking, and often repetitive, signaling that something significant is stirring deep within the soul. These dreams are not random. They aim to prepare the individual for the meeting with the other who, in truth, is a reunion with oneself. The soulmate, as an external expression of an internal process, stirs unconscious movements that seek symbolic expression, dreaming of strangers who feel familiar, of sacred places, of doors opening, of voices calling your name, or of archetypal animals. All these can represent aspects of the self manifesting, indicating that the psyche is transitioning to a new stage. One of the clearest signs that the unconscious is on alert is the repetition of dream themes linked to love, union, loss, and reunion. The unconscious works with impactful images, for its language is not logical but emotional and symbolic. It is common, for example, to dream of weddings, idealized partners, mysterious journeys, or intense encounters with unknown figures who bring both comfort and unease. These figures can represent the anima, or the animus, manifesting as inner guides and heralding the arrival of someone who, in the external world, will mirror these contents. Curiously, these dreams often leave a sense that something is coming, even when nothing concrete is happening in reality. The dreamer wakes up with the impression of having received an important message, even without fully understanding its content. Jung called this the symbolic attitude, the ability to perceive that dreams are trying to convey something essential. When this attitude is cultivated, the individual begins to pay closer attention to inner signs, opening space for the unconscious to actively participate in conscious life. Psychic preparation for meeting a soulmate, then, involves deep listening to these dreams, writing them down, reflecting on them, and above all, feeling what they stir emotionally is a practice that brings us closer to our own soul. These dreams are not here to entertain, but to guide. They are internal compasses pointing towards the next step in the individuation journey. The soulmate appears not when we are searching for someone to save us, but when we have already begun the process of listening to and integrating our inner world. It's important to highlight that dreams do not predict the future in a literal sense. They reveal present psychic states that unfold into future possibilities. Therefore, when the unconscious begins to send these images frequently, it doesn't mean the meeting will happen immediately, but that the being is ready for it. This readiness is vibrational, emotional, archetypal, and what is ready within tends to manifest without sooner or later. Moreover, dreams can reveal blocks that must be resolved before the meeting. Threatening figures, scenes of abandonment, or repetitions of traumatic experiences may indicate that the unconscious is working through the emotional cleansing necessary so that the relationship, when it comes, does not repeat old patterns. In this sense, dreams become true exercises in polishing the soul. Therefore, if you've been experiencing vivid, symbolic, and emotionally charged dreams, consider that your psyche may be signaling a transition. Your soulmate may be approaching, not as a romantic fantasy, but as an archetypal reality that demands preparation, courage, and surrender. Listen to your dreams. They know the path your consciousness is still learning to walk. One of the central pillars of Carl Jung's analytical psychology is the understanding that we all carry within us a psychic counterpart of the opposite sex. In men, this counterpart is called the anima. In women, the animus. Both represent the totality of the psyche, since each human being contains both masculine and feminine aspects, energies that intertwine and complement each other. These archetypes are not just abstract inner forces. They have a direct role in how we relate, especially in intense and transformative bonds, such as those often associated with the meeting of a soulmate. The presence of the anima and animus in the unconscious shapes our emotional projections. When we are unaware of these inner figures, we tend to project them onto external people, especially romantic partners. This projection creates an intense, magnetic, sometimes even irrational attraction, for we are in fact seeing in the other what lies dormant or denied within us. The soulmate, in this context, often becomes the receptacle for this archetypal projection. They embody, or at least awaken, the inner image we carry of the ideal masculine or feminine. For a man, when the anima is activated, he begins to see in a woman qualities that transcend the physical or rational. She becomes the channel for connection to sensitivity, intuition, creativity, and mystery. For a woman, when the animus is projected, the man assumes the form of a figure representing strength, direction, reason, and transcendence. These archetypes, when projected, create experiences of love that feel spiritually significant, as though something sacred were being revealed through the relationship. This experience, though powerful, is also dangerous. The projection of the anima or animus can distort the perception of reality. We see the other not as they are, but as we wish them to be, according to the archetypal images inhabiting our unconscious. That's why relationships that seem like meetings of souls can become grounds for frustration and conflict when these projections begin to dissolve. The true soulmate, then, is not the one who simply confirms these inner images, but the one who helps us recognize them, integrate them, and ultimately withdraw them from projection so that we can relate more authentically. The meeting with a soulmate activates these forces intensely. It's not just about physical attraction or compatibility of ideas, but about a deep, often inexplicable recognition that the other mirrors something essential. This experience touches directly on the process of individuation, for it forces us to look inward and understand that what we seek outside is, in truth, a reflection of what we have yet to know or accept in ourselves. Integrating the anima and animus is, therefore, a crucial step toward emotional and spiritual maturity. As we recognize these inner figures, we stop depending on the other as our source of completeness. We begin to see that the soulmate is not someone who comes to save us, but someone who reminds us of what we need to awaken and develop. It is through this mirror that we begin to reconcile our inner polarities, uniting feeling and thinking, doing and intuiting, acting and receiving. When the anima and animus are unconscious, they act as masters of desire, but when they become conscious, they become guides. The energy that was once projected transforms into a creative impulse, into sensitivity, into the ability to love without dependency, to surrender without losing oneself. The other ceases to be an idol and becomes a companion, and love ceases to be illusion and becomes a path of mutual growth. Therefore, when you feel a deep and unexpected attraction, ask yourself, what does this person awaken in me that I hadn't yet seen? That question is the gateway to the awareness of the anima and animus, and through it, we begin to transform blind passion into conscious love. The soulmate, in this process, is both the provocateur and the partner of this inner journey. They help us remember that true love begins with self-recognition, and that every authentic union is born from the meeting of wholes, not halves. Few concepts in Carl Jung's analytical psychology are as fascinating and at the same time as deeply spiritual as that of synchronicity. Jung defined synchronicity as the simultaneous occurrence of two events linked not by a causal relationship, but by a common meaning. In other words, they are meaningful coincidences that seem to reveal a hidden pattern guiding individual experience. When a soulmate is about to enter our life, this pattern begins to intensify, and the world around us seems to respond to what is happening in our inner world. These signs are not just products of the imagination. They arise as symbolic reflections of an ongoing psychic process, revealing that the unconscious is in motion and that something significant is about to emerge in reality. It is as though the universe conspires to align the external world with the process of inner individuation. At this stage, improbable encounters start to occur. Specific phrases are heard repeatedly, seemingly random places take on new meaning, and ordinary situations acquire intense symbolic charge. Everything seems to speak directly to the soul. In this context, many people report noticing signs that someone important is about to cross their path. It could be a numerical sequence repeating with unusual frequency, a song that appears at just the right moments, encounters with strangers who say exactly what you needed to hear, or the sudden sense of being in the right place without knowing why. These signs should not be seen as predictions, but as invitations to full awareness. The unconscious is using the symbolic language of the world to communicate a deeper truth. Something is awakening, and you are being prepared to receive it. When the bond with a soulmate draws near, the symbolic field of reality intensifies. The boundaries between the internal and the external seem to dissolve, creating a synchronistic experience that defies common logic. Jung believed this happened because in moments of high emotional charge or psychic transformation, the collective unconscious manifests more strongly. Synchronicity then acts as a bridge between the individual's inner world and the cosmos, a bridge where meaning replaces causality. The most important thing is to understand that these synchronicities do not exist to predict events, but to provoke inner listening. The sign itself has no power to change destiny, but serves as a mirror reflecting the state of the soul. And when the soul is seeking a deep connection, the reflections multiply. Everything around becomes metaphor. What happens outside resonates with what is happening inside. In this state of symbolic openness, the meeting with the soulmate becomes possible because the individual is no longer blind to the messages of their own unconscious. This phenomenon also requires discernment. Not every coincidence is synchronicity. For an event to be truly meaningful, it must touch emotionally, awaken a sense of inner recognition. The rational mind may doubt, but the soul knows when something is more than mere chance. In these moments, it is common to experience a sense of peace, purpose, or even an inexplicable stirring of emotion. These are reactions of the self, indicating that we are aligning with a deep truth. Synchronicity can also reveal blocks still preventing the meeting. It might be a repetitive pattern of frustration, a constant return to places or situations symbolizing unresolved past experiences. These signs are not punishments, but indications that something must be understood and integrated before the next step can manifest. Rather than waiting passively for someone, we must read the signs as calls to inner action. They push us toward healing, self-knowledge, and responsibility for our own journey. When we begin to interpret life symbolically, every element gains depth. Reality becomes a field of dialogue between the conscious and the unconscious. And in this dance of meanings, the arrival of a soulmate is not an interruption, but a natural consequence of the inner harmony that is beginning to form. The other appears not when we are trying to escape ourselves, but when we are ready to see the mirror of our soul, both in dreams and in the world's silent signs. The true meeting with someone we recognize as a soulmate is not just a romantic experience, but a turning point in the psychic journey of self-discovery. For Carl Jung, the process of individuation, becoming what you are in essence, requires confronting everything that has been denied, repressed, or ignored within us. And few experiences are as powerful in this regard as a deep relationship that forces us to see ourselves with honesty. The other, by touching our soul, activates an emotional field where our oldest wounds and purest potentials manifest at the same time. It is in this field that healing and transformation become possible. Contrary to the myth of the soulmate as someone who comes to fill our voids, the archetype of the true meeting presents itself as a psychic mirror. It reflects not only our light, but also our shadows. This mirroring provokes discomfort, fascination, resistance, and attraction, all at once. And it is precisely because of this intensity that the meeting becomes catalytic. It accelerates internal processes, confronts old defenses, and reveals authentic traits that had been covered by social masks, fears, and inherited patterns. The movement of individuation begins when we stop projecting onto the other what we need to develop in ourselves. At the start of the bond, it is common to see in the other the source of all answers. We believe they will make us feel complete, safe, loved. But over time, and as the projection dissolves, we realize the other was never the savior but the trigger. They brought to the surface latent aspects of ourselves, like the ability to love, to trust, to open up, or even to protect ourselves. Every emotion awakened in the encounter is an invitation to look inward, to recover forgotten parts of our own being. This process is painful because it forces us to let go of old roles and identity structures we built to survive. Deep love, contrary to what one might think, is not immediate comfort. It is challenge, it is creative disturbance. The other asks us questions we didn't know we needed to answer. They remind us of our vulnerability, but also of our strength. They place us before our contradictions, yet at the same time reveal the possibility of living more fully. This is individuation, the conscious integration of all parts that make us who we are, what we were, what we are, and what we can be. In a relationship with such strong archetypal characteristics, emotional healing does not come from the other's presence itself, but from what we are led to access within ourselves through the relationship. Old traumas that once seemed insurmountable begin to dissolve when we understand their roots and embrace their pain without judgment. Genuine love, when born from the soul, does not demand perfection or constant approval. It holds space for each person to transform without fear of rejection, and in that space, the fragmented parts of the self begin to reunite. Another fundamental aspect of this healing is letting go of the idea of possession. When the bond is true, it transcends the bonds of control, neediness, and emotional dependence. There is space for each to continue their journey, even if it follows unexpected paths. Love between souls does not require imprisonment, but offers the freedom to grow side by side, or even apart when necessary. The deepest lesson this meeting teaches is that real love is the one that brings us closer to our essence, even if it means challenging us to leave the ego behind. Finally, it's important to understand that individuation has no fixed endpoint. It is a continuous journey of discovery, loss, and reintegration. The meeting with a soulmate marks a turning point, but not a final destination. It opens doors, removes veils, expands consciousness. It may last a lifetime or only a moment, but the impact it leaves is eternal. The soul that touches ours in truth is never forgotten, for it has activated something that already existed in us, but had not yet been accessed. And that is why, when we are ready for this kind of love, it doesn't come only as a blessing, but as a summons. A summons to be who we truly are, to heal our wounds without denying them, to find in the other not salvation, but a clear mirror of our own potential. The true meeting is not the end of the search, but the beginning of integration. And from it, the journey towards the self intensifies, transforming love into path, into healing, and into awakening. Throughout this journey, we have explored how the signs from the unconscious, symbolic dreams, the activation of the shadow, projections of the anima and animus, and deep synchronicities can indicate the approach of a transformative meeting. More than an idealized romance, the true soulmate emerges as a catalyst for individuation, awakening in us everything that needs to be healed, integrated, and understood. The other, in this scenario, is not an external complement, but an internal mirror reflecting what already resides within us, waiting to be recognized. It is in that reflection that the opportunity for evolution is born, not just connection. If you sense that the signs are all around you, if you feel your soul being called to a new stage of awareness and openness, listen to that intuition. The most important meetings in life are not planned, they are silently prepared by the soul. If this content resonated with you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to continue deepening this journey of self-knowledge. And take a moment to watch the video appearing on your screen now. It may be the next step in your personal transformation. Your process began in the invisible. Now it's time to bring it into consciousness.